Aloha and welcome to Java. This is for Monday, January 15th, 2024. It is also Martin Luther King Jr. holiday in the United States, so trading is closed. I hope some of you have enjoyed long weekend. So the Asian markets were open. We're going to get right into this. So because the United States markets were closed, it was low volume trading. They're down a bit also because they were expecting some easing that their central bank did not deliver to them because they're seeing inflation tick up as well. So we've got a similar story here that's starting to come out. Earnings forecast for the S&P 500 in 2024 that it may be overly optimistic, and what they're talking about is the markets are expecting the Federal Reserve to step in right away, and with inflation coming up and the jobs numbers that they came out with, even though the numbers are cooked and not accurate, they're saying that the good job numbers and strong market is still posing probability for them in putting in these cuts in their rates. They do have to keep them, as they say, higher for longer in order to quote unquote curb inflation, which I don't think it's going to do, but moving forward, that's what's affecting the overall prices in the markets. So with the calendar, the major things that we are looking forward to is today is indeed a holiday, no trading. Tuesday, there's not much going on. We've got Wednesday, the reports are getting the core sales, retail sales. Then we're going to be really looking at these jobless claims for the Fed action, crude oil inventories, which will be affected later, and existing home sales. So a lot of these numbers, some of them are with True Economy, but we'll keep you up to date. We've got earnings coming in, more bank earnings. So Tuesday, we're getting Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, PNC Financial, and Interactive Brokers. So we've also got Charles Schwab, US Bank Corp, Kinder Morgan, Alcoa, which will be for our commodities trades, and then a few other banks, as well as Ally Financial. So these are going to play in, and Travelers Insurance. I'll talk about these later. I think there's much more key to this, and we'll be seeing how things play out. So we had BlackRock come out. Well, several of them did with their Bitcoin ETFs. And so this story is about their acquisitions of Bitcoin, raising supply crunch concerns. But what the market did is historically what it does: bought the rumor, sold the news. So as of this moment, Bitcoin is dropping in price, and so that's dropping a lot of cryptocurrencies. And I think that's going to continue to a bit of a lower point. However, it will raise eventually. We do see a higher target, and there's almost no argument from the analysts from that. It's just a question of when and what targets, but the probabilities are for an increase once it settles on these levels. So we've got oil is in the news again, of course, on war, Houthi threats, and we're talking about the Middle East. So went over $80 barrel because of the diversions from the Red Sea. However, it's very volatile right now. Oil has several factors going on because it's not just the Middle East anymore. Now we've got South America into play, as well as South Africa, actually, talking about imports and then also in the refineries. So there's a lot more players than there used to be, a lot more volatility. So it had an issue after the problem with the Boeing MAX 9. There was another crack discovered in a cockpit window of another Boeing craft, not the MAX 9. However, this was an Air Japan flight. And I'm just bringing this up because I spoke last weekend about, prior to the weekend, about Boeing coming down to the sub 200 level. I think this is probably going to do it. They've got several lawsuits in the way. And in my mind, this will be a buying opportunity. They're not just in travel, but they're also in defense, military, aerospace. So I'm not purchasing yet. As I said, I'm waiting for it to go below the 200 level. The absolute low is just above 100 was the low that it hit during the spike down for the pandemic. So we've got Brazil's Gol. They're an airliner down in South America. They're considering Chapter 11 bankruptcy. So with all of these travel companies in Delta, they're beginning to revise their earnings. and showing a little bit of weakness in the travel sector, if you would. So I expect them to have a bit of a slow recovery to a decline towards the end of this year, 2024. So we have the US employment reports. This is what we're talking about. No one looks at the revisions. So when the reports come out, they're all happy that we've got this strong job market. But the reality is they were revised by more than 400,000 jobs. And so we see this because we are looking not just at the news stories, but in the real economy, if you would. So we've got, with this story coming along, Americans can no longer afford their cars. So that's coupled by a few things. It's not just the sticker price of the car up front. That's kind of compounded, as well as with insurance, which we'll go into a bit more in just a little bit. So we have, with this cold snap that has been hitting the United States, homeless people, which is rising in numbers rapidly, are looking for places that they can go basically to survive out of these record low temperatures. So they're going to airports. Airports typically have free services, they have bathrooms, they have electricity, they have free wireless internet to a point. So these are some of the airports. They're changing what they're doing because they're having such an issue with the homelessness. But there's a larger reason that airports have a lot of homelessness is because these also coincidentally are a lot of the same airports to where a lot of illegal migrants are being brought into. So I'm not going to get into that this time because we've got quite a bit to go over. So I did want to cover a little bit. Now, this happened last week. We were talking about the European Union farmers' blockade. So this is particularly in Germany. So they're staging this, probably happening as I'm doing this protest. And a lot of this is because they're taking subsidies from the farmers, charging them higher prices, in essence, for their fuel, but at the same time funding Ukraine again. They've got another package. I think it's 8 billion euros they're sending to Ukraine. So, similar to what the United States is doing, instead of taking care of their own people, they are sending it to this war. So, at the same time, we have, with all of these wars raging, we've got the World Economic Forum meeting in Davos. So we've got all of these Davos people again that are going to decide the fates of our lives. And they have decided that their theme is going to be about rebuilding trust. So we're going to see how they intend on doing that. But they're talking about what the leaders are talking about with climate change and saying that can help. I don't know that that's the point of why we distrust them so much. I think they're a little disconnected. However, they've got a lot of plans in the works for us. So they're saying that distrust is in innovation, and while that's true, it's much broader than that. So this is really what I wanted to talk about because I think this is much larger than it's getting attention to. In fact, it's getting hardly any attention at all. So the economic cost of natural disasters estimated. So if you think about all of the things that have been going on, and a lot of these have been created, but aside from the wars, we've also got the earthquakes that have happened, the fires that have happened over in Maui, burning everything to the ground. We've got these deadly tornadoes happening in Tennessee, inclement weather, record high tides, uh, historical coastal flooding with all of these structures. It's about a 100-year-old structure in Maine getting washed away. These are historic things, so they have never happened. We've got the wildfires burning things down, issues with this. So what happens with all of these disasters and how is it paid for? It's one other way, as I was talking about this before, for them to inflate, because this is all off of printed dollars for the most part. A lot of insurances work with pools. And so, just as an overview, things can't be paid for. They are paid for by the insurer of last resort. Now, we know the government is the buyer and lender of last resort. They are also the insurer, which makes them a different type of a buyer. So, talking about this recent analysis by the Insurance Information Institute, so this very specifically is simply auto and homeowners insurance premiums. They're talking about how they lag. They're up over 20% within a year. And they're talking about how they're set for premium increases in 2023. So if we look at the wider implications of these increases, they're going to create less people being able to afford their vehicles, like we were speaking about earlier, because car premiums have increased so much. Homeowner premiums have increased to a point where people's mortgage payments, coupled with these insurance payments, which are required if you need a mortgage loan, are going to make them unaffordable. So the only ones able to afford these things will be cash buyers. And if we look at the defaults that will happen, all of the disasters that happen with private insurance companies, a lot of these private insurance companies, and this is the larger story, they're all invested by banks. Banks, pension funds, 401ks. The big story for a long time, look at Berkshire Hathaway, was a large insurance company. So at this time, I'm digging into a lot more of these numbers so I can get some more specifics out. But I think this has the potential to be basically an everything bubble buster. And I hope to write a bit more about this very soon, because I think this could be something that's just potentially overlooked. So I wanted to get this out now, but I think insurance companies just huge trouble. So I got a short lava update I did want to talk about. We were talking about the mini brain cells that they're talking about making, and they're now admitting that they're from fetus brain cells, and they're talking about how the tissue comes from medically terminated pregnancies, so basically abortions. But they're talking about their groundbreaking development, creating miniature brains for neuroscience, three-dimensional organs, talking about the different things that they can do. But between this and the gene recombinations that they're doing, I have to be very careful what I say here. There's a lot more to this. So I think I'll handle this in the Substack if I can. I just need to get these stories out. But I want you to think about some of these things and let you know that of what's going on. So with this next week coming up, short week, could be very volatile is what I'm expecting. More traders coming out on the floor and a lot more money basically coming into play. Kind of mixed, but I'll be with you in the morning to see what that says pre-market. So until I see you again, my friends, stay free.